Tell me, Leonard, do you like my bongos? Bet you didn't know I could play the bongos. Okay, sorry. Anytime I see bongos, I have a Big Bang Theory flashback to that time. Sheldon got bongos. So if you haven't seen that one, it's a good one. We're going to talk about the beat generation that emerges in the World War II, post World War II era. And we're going to take a look at the hippie movement that grows out of this generation. I'm going to mention a couple of folks that have a lot to do with it, and then put some of their work up on the YouTube playlist. So if you are not with us while we're doing this, you can hear and see some of the stuff. I will tell you, it's a little weird, but you'll see that kind of as we go through what's happening. The Beat Generation is a group of writers, excuse me, in the 50s and 60s who are known for really two things. One is a very unconventional style of writing, so not following a lot of the rules that people had been using before, and also rejecting the values of the culture as a whole. In the 60s, they will call this the counterculture. Right, so it's kind of like, okay, well, this is what everybody in the culture is telling us that we need to do. We're going to go the opposite direction. And so that's where the Beat Generation is going to get its start. It starts at Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school. And the beat part comes from them saying they were tired or beaten down. And it's a reaction against the academic culture of the day. Now, in the 50s and 60s, college is going to open up really to a different set of young people. And it's a set of young people who are going to be kind of the kids of the greatest generation, or folks that weren't old enough to serve in World War II but are now going to be going to college. So you got to think these people are coming to this place with a different set of experiences than maybe their predecessors would have. And so a lot of this is going to mean a lot of conversations about, why do we do things this way? Do things have to be done that way? And so you get a bit of rebellion that's going to be there. These folks really don't worry about arrest. There are some of them that get arrested for murder, a lot of drug use, stealing, that sort of thing. Drug use is going to be a big part of this culture. And then eventually they'll relocate to San Francisco in the 1950s. Now, San Francisco, as the 60s start, will be kind of the epicenter of the hippie movement. And it kind of naturally grows out of what we're seeing here. These folks are anti-materialistic, so that was one of the things that was running counter to the culture. They really felt like the world had gotten very materialistic, only worried about accumulating things. And so for a lot of these folks, they didn't want to own things. And one of the things you'll see with hippies is kind of a communal type of lifestyle where everybody's just sharing everything that they've got. They definitely did drug experimentation. You see that with marijuana, LSD, acid. Alternative sexuality. These are people who, in the 1950s, you really wouldn't have talked about homosexuality or open relationships or being bisexual. And so these were kind of new and radical ideas that are coming out of there. A lot of them get involved or fascinated with Eastern religions. So especially religions that had a basis in meditation, and so there's a lot of draw to those sorts of things. But basically, they were involved in two things: one, not conforming to what was expected of them, and being very creative. And that's going to come out in the writing, especially, but also the music that you would hear coming from these places. Allen Ginsberg.
How for Carl?
Is just about to talk to you there. But he had I don't know if it's necessarily a poem or a story. Like I said, these are real unconventional writing forms, but called Howl. And he really reflected on culture and what was going on in culture. I'll put that reading up there for you on the YouTube playlist. But he was one that you see associated with this quite a bit. William Burroughs. This is more of a long form, just kind of stream of consciousness, just kind of as it's happening. Didn't, like I said, didn't really have a lot of structure and things like that. A lot of times in these books, you've got things that wouldn't have been written in books before. Profane language, more explicit sexuality than you would have seen in writing, and so that's another hallmark. One of the more famous, Jack Kerouac, is one of these guys that's a beatnik, and he wrote novels, and one of his was a novel called On the Road, which is an interesting book. If you guys see our principal, Mr. Rout, out there, somewhere may ask him. He actually likes this book. Maybe read it with him. But kind of an interesting story of a road trip with some friends. But Jack Kerouac's another name that you see associated with it. We get the name Beatnik because of two things. One, you've got that beat generation, right? The beat down generation. But also, this is going to be a generation that is alive and kind of becoming at the same time as Sputnik, which is the first man-made object to go into space. So that's where we get Beatnik. You get the beat and then the nick off of Sputnik. So the image that we get of Beatniks becomes kind of a hipster image, the goatee or a neatly shaved beard, sunglasses, a lot of times wearing dark clothing, turtlenecks, things like this, and then berets came into fashion. So some of you may be like, you know what, I'd love to wear a beret. Too bad you weren't born in the Beat generation, right? It would have been something that was very acceptable to be able to do that. And so the Beat generation and Beatniks are what's going to inspire what we're going to see in our next unit with the hippie culture. These folks that just kind of want to remove themselves even further from American culture and take these ideas really to a whole nother level. So we'll check them out in the next unit.